And so we learn about when they brought that back in verse 2. In 1 Kings 8, it says, "And all the men of Israel assembled themselves unto King Solomon at the feast in the month of Ethnim," which is the 7th month. So they come in a certain time of feast, and it's during the Feast of Tabernacles. And if you're familiar with the Feast of the Tabernacles, or it's also called the Feast of Booths, it's to celebrate the wilderness wanderings of, like, when they left Egypt. They wandered and they set up tents, and so there was them finally getting out of that. And this recalls those wilderness wanderings. This also took place in the year of Jubilee, around September, sort of October-ish, is when this would have taken place. And so it's a huge feast with a lot of people coming. And you wonder, I think they did this on purpose. Think about the Ark of the Covenant and the tabernacle where God was dwelling with them as he went from place to place. But now we know that the temple is that permanent dwelling place for God and for them to see. So there's this big feast that is happening. Look in verse 3. "And all the elders of Israel came, and the priest took up the ark." So you have the elders, all the men, all the heads of the tribes, and they all bring up the ark. Look at verse 4. "They brought up the ark of the Lord in the tabernacle of the congregation." So they brought the tabernacle along with the ark and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle. Remember, there's new holy vessels that are now in this. David had some of his vessels that were brought in by Solomon. Now they're adding all the vessels that were in it previous in its other location. And it says, "Even those did the priests and the Levites bring up." This had to be an exciting time for them. They were bringing in all the stuff. The Levites and the priests, their job was to serve in the temple and to do these things for the Lord. So all these things were exciting for them to bring into this place where all this was going to happen. And look how exciting it gets in verse 5. "And King Solomon and all the congregation of Israel that were assembled with him were with him before the ark." So as the ark is making its way into its place, into the temple, it takes a pit stop before it gets into its place, and it stops in the temple yard, where we looked at what's in the temple yard: the big basins, the altars for sacrificing, all the washing vessels, all the bases, all those things are all lined up out there for this purpose. So it's coming out into the courts. And look, it said there were assembled unto him, there were with him before the ark, and they were all there, look, sacrificing sheep and oxen that could not be told or numbered for the multitude. That had to be some spectacle. I mean, sacrificing. We think about, it just says sacrificing, but the amount of animals that were there and the amount of bloodshed that was there and the smell, I don't mean to be gross, but the smell of like flesh burning and burning on the altar. And later on it says that the altar could not even hold the amount of sacrifices that people brought before the Lord for this celebration. It had to be such I don't think we can even envision in our eyes how intense this must have been, but also such a joyous occasion as well. I want you to notice something in this verse. It said that they all were before him sacrificing sheep and oxen. They could not be told or numbered for the multitude. No one came empty-handed. Because it could not be numbered. You could not count it. No one came empty-handed. Listen, it's not about money. It's not about any of that. Don't come to enjoy the blessings of God and forget about the offering to God. They were serious about this. This was a joyous occasion, and they were coming and bringing these sacrifices and these offerings before him. So verse 6, the priest brought in the ark of the covenant of the Lord unto its place into the oracle of the house, the most holy place, under the wings of the cherubim. Now your mind has to be, okay, I know what this looks like. I can picture the chains, the gold, the floor being gold, the cherubim spread out, the gold cherubims that went from one side to the other, welcoming in this peace, in this Ark of Covenant, coming into the most holy place, under the wings of the cherubim. He describes it for us, the picture and the position of where they're putting this. For the cherubim spread forth their two wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubims covered the ark and the staves thereof above. So now you kind of know why. Like before we were looking at, well, why do they have these big cherubims in this room? What is the purpose for these wings being one end to the other? So that the Ark of the Covenant could fit perfectly right in place. And the wings of those cherubims could cover up the ark completely. What a picture. Had to be such an exciting time for them. It says in verse 8, or verse 7, for the cherubim spread forth their two wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubims covered the ark and the staves thereof above. So it was completely covered. In verse 8, they drew out the staves, that the ends of the staves were seen out of the holy place before the oracle. Remember, oracle, if you don't remember, it just means speaking place for the Lord. But they pulled out the staves before the oracle. They were not seen without, and they are there unto this day. And they are not there unto this day, but they were there unto this day when this was written. So they pull out the staves, not all the way, because remember it said that they would not be completely removed. But the idea is that they're pulling those staves out, and it's almost like they were drawn out so that they could direct the high priest to the mercy seat. They were almost like a little highway that was going to direct him right to the mercy seat. So what is in the ark? At this moment here, it says in verse 9, there was nothing in the ark but the two tablets of stone which Moses put therein at Horeb when the Lord made a covenant with him and the children of Israel when they came out of the land of Egypt. That would be the 10. That was when God gave it to Moses, and he wrote it down. Remember, the first set were destroyed, and this would be the second set. So that is all the contents of the ark. Before we go into verse 10, I want us to get the other account in 2 Chronicles chapter 5. If you're not familiar, you can find a lot of the same accounts between Kings and Chronicles, and sometimes Kings will add a little bit more, and sometimes Chronicles will give you a little bit more picture. It's just the same thing as going through like Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, and you get the same account, but you just get a little different picture of it. But before we go into verse 10, I want you to look at 2 Chronicles 5, verse 11. And it says, and it came to pass, when the priests were come out of the holy place, for all the priests that were present were sanctified, and did not them wait by course. Also the Levites, which were the singers, all of them, Asaph, and Heman, and Jeduthun, with their sons and their brethren, being arrayed in white linen, having cymbals and psalteries and harps, stood at the east end of the altar, and with them 120 priests sounding with trumpets. Oh, what do we have going on? Not only sacrificing on the outside, right? There's music playing, psalteries and trumpets. 120 priests sounding with trumpets. What noise that must have been. How loud you probably could have heard that from afar off. So as they are singing and praising unto the Lord, verse 13, and it came to pass as these trumpeters and the singers were as one. Oh, that's so good. They were just one. They were in perfect unison, the two of them, to make one sound to be heard in praising and thanking the Lord. That should always be our method and our mode to praise the Lord with our music and our song. And when they lifted up their voice with the trumpets and the cymbals, think about how loud that voice had to be to rise above 120 trumpets and cymbals and psalteries and all the music and the splendor and all the different things that were going on. They lifted up their voice with the trumpets and the cymbals and the instruments of music, and they praised. They praised the Lord, saying, "For he is good, and his mercy endures forever." What a picture that is